everyone. Thank you once again for coming to Lifestyle TV USA by Dr. Moby, the #1 professional podcast TV in the US and ranked 56 worldwide. And also to my own podcast, Talk About Life by Vicky Esther, whereby you can find me on all podcast catchers on 15 platforms and growing in over 30 countries, and also my YouTube channel, Talk About Life. And today is actually the 19th of October 2021, and wherever you are or whenever you are, either today you're tuning in or tomorrow, next year, it's going to go into infinity. That's the power of the digital world, the fourth industrialization. And I'm so excited to be always on a podcast because we are connected to the world instantly and for perpetuity. And it is 1:59 p.m. in Singapore, and Singapore is 1 degree latitude north from the equator. Please tell everyone who you are, where you are from, Richard. And he is my new friend and a special guest for the new show. Richard, would you like to introduce yourself to the Singapore and international American audience?
Hi, well, thank you very much, Vicky, for having me on your show today. My name is Richard Lowe, and originally I'm from Oxford, England. However, I've lived over half my life here in Asia, over 28 years in total, of which 26 years have been in Singapore. So it's been a real great experience living my life here. Married to a Japanese national. I had 4 children who've all been born and raised in Singapore. They're referred to often as third culture kids because they have a Japanese mother, British father, and yet born and raised here in Singapore.
And you know, Richard, I'm so glad to have you because you are really the epitome of the global citizen, right?
I would like to think so, yes. I often say that when I backpacked around the world at the age of 23 years old, it's like the University of Life, and taught me perhaps a lot more than my academic background did.
And you know, Richard, there is such a huge, I should say, different school of thoughts right now, particularly in the pandemic, that everyone is actually doing homeschooling or online schooling. There is this talk that, education doesn't make a person anymore. It's all about surviving out there. Now that you talked about education, it's about surviving in the world, that the world is being disrupted by technology, that you and we are connected both in Singapore and now going to America and elsewhere in the world. We're really talking about the world that is disrupted even in your sleep, even when you do not know it, and also disrupted by a virus. Everyone is kept locked down in 2020. Now the economies are trying to open up, the borders are opening up. It's like, virus or no virus, we got to live. So, Richard, the thing about education and yourself and your children in Singapore, they are really under this climate in education, right, whereby they are put in a rat race, isn't it, Richard?
Well, certainly Singapore has a very demanding education system. And I do get gripes from the kids at times that, can we go overseas and go to a school where we don't have so much homework? But at the end of the day, I value a good education. I think it helps to train the mind. It helps you to question the world around you. And hopefully, if nothing else, and perhaps most importantly, how to navigate the challenges of life.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you said, if we look at the pandemic and the current affairs of the world right now, pre-pandemic, pandemic, and now we are mid-pandemic. Hopefully we'll be post-pandemic soon. A lot of issues really arises from the pandemic situation. We're talking about a lot of nationalism, energies, a lot of discrimination, racism around the world. And I thought I am really honored to have you on because I have known you, I've spoken to you in the last couple of weeks, that you are someone that really embraces diversity, Richard, especially that you have settled down in Singapore.
Absolutely. When I backpack around the world, one of the things that attracted me to come back to Asia, and again, particularly places like Hong Kong and Singapore, was the cultural diversity. It's very common. I've been to banquets and weddings where there might be 12 people sitting around the table, and you've got 12 different nationalities, and that opens
in Singapore.
up and living here in Singapore, and that opens up really entertaining conversation, diverse ideas, thoughts. And I think at the end of the day, when you can hear almost like a mini United Nations around the table, you can get a far better understanding of the world around you and how people perceive it. And just the way, because the way you were brought up in life doesn't necessarily mean to say that's the way the rest of the world sees how the world works, and doesn't necessarily mean that the way that you were brought up is the only way and the right way. And I think by embracing cultural diversity, we can learn a great deal about how the world operates and get a greater perspective.
And why I think you are the epitome of a successful expat was integrated successfully in Singapore, that I think it's also important to tell the international audience. Richard here from Oxford, UK, integrated here successfully, and now having children that I should say like the third culture, but almost, I would say that they're almost like a Singaporean, right, Richard? And I want you to give us a couple of examples, like some of these things that you have learned through your children's lives about having this third culture here in Singapore.
Well, yeah, they are third culture kids, and they have taken on probably more values of Singapore because this is where they've been brought up and raised. Just one example is the school system. They have been brought up through the local school system, and on one side they do have a tendency to complain about it, but at the same time Singapore has one of the best education systems in the world. They can speak Singlish as well as anybody, and for those in the audience who are not familiar with Singlish, it is an English sort of twang that also brings in all sorts of other words from the local languages here as well. So, they're Eurasian kids. It's been great. I've often asked them, I said, having lived in Singapore, being Eurasian, have you ever been teased for looking maybe slightly different? And not once have they ever been teased in Singapore. Singapore culture has been very, very accepting of Eurasian children. I think Singapore people are accustomed, to seeing Eurasian children, and because they're brought up in a multicultural society, seeing faces that look and speak a little bit differently is quite normal.
Yeah, and Richard, we are now in the depths of the pandemic. Hopefully, we will emerge it soon. We all have our fates, destinies tied right now throughout the world. We're talking about UK that's gone to normalcy. We've gone to US now. US is it's 50-50 now. Parts of the US is open up. Other parts of the states are really in lockdown. Like my friend who texts me, she says that, in many parts of California, it is still very closed. It is still closed. The economy is still closed because the numbers are shooting. The Delta variant is up. It really teach us during this pandemic to really quieten down and really listen to the world, Richard. And you've brought up a very important point, like your children, right? They are grown up in a bicultural household, you and your wife, and now being living in the third culture in Singapore. And you want to say about Singapore, the Singlish, and a little bit about Singapore to the rest of the world. I always feel that Singlish is something to be really celebrated. Even though I don't like to speak too much of it, but I think it celebrates the amalgamation, the melting pot of borrowed language from different culture. And we're talking about times whereby Singapore was really trying to find its identity, trying to find its footing, whereby we have all these immigrants from all around the world, in part of Southeast Asia, coming here together on this little island and trying to make sense of the future and themselves. So I always feel that Singlish is something not to be embarrassed about, not to be put down, but something that people should embrace, because it is about anthropology. It is about history written. It is about this group of people who try to learn and accept each other with respect and with grace, because we borrow the language from Malay, from English, from Hokkien, from Cantonese, from Indian, whatever language there is, even from Hindu or Tamil, whatever, to put into a language whereby, hey, I hear you. Hey, yep. I think I know you. I mean, it is a mirror of the pandemic we're in right now, Richard.
Well, I think, Singlish is a great example, as you say, of Singapore's uniqueness. Sometimes you hear sort of the tourist board wonder, well, what is it that is unique to Singapore? And really, I think, if you're coming in as a tourist, although there are some lovely tourist attractions, I think the greatest thing is the uniqueness is its diversity. And there lies, what I think sets Singapore apart. And Singlish, the language which is this almost what we call the rojak, a mixture of languages that have been put together from all different cultures, is again something that's unique. Sometimes the government frowns on it because foreigners don't understand it, but like all countries, we have our own sort of parochial style of communication.
Of course, I mean, I call it the kombucha. The kombucha tea of language, right? You've got to put it in, marinate it, ferment it, and it comes out something else. But hopefully it comes out something beautiful. Richard, you've shared with us a little bit about yourself, your life, the audience get to know you. Tell us about yourself right now. I mean, I see One Global Property Services, and I do see you talking to people. Your webinars is on my email marketing. One of you to be on your email marketing list. I mean, I do see you having your classes. Tell us what you do actually, Richard.
Well, when I originally came to Asia, I was 20, to live here, that is, I was 25 years old. I was working in the sports and fitness industry, and then the company I was working for relocated me here to Singapore. That was back in July of 1995.
So you came from Hong Kong?
Yeah, so I lived in Hong Kong from 93 to 95, just before the handover. So as a British citizen, it was very easy to live and work there. And as I say, my company relocated me to Singapore. I'd only been here for a few days when I backpacked around a few years before, was thrown in the deep end, knew nobody, had no contacts, was 29 years old, very sort of naive and wet behind the ears, but like a lot of situations, thrown in at the deep end and go out and kind of make it happen. Over the years, I'd grown in very senior roles within the health and fitness industry, and got to a point where I couldn't really see myself sort of climbing the ladder any further. And a good friend of mine that had also worked in the health and fitness industry had started up a real estate investment company, and I decided to cross over into real estate, and have worked in various capacities, whether that's in pure finance, developer finance, or marketing of international real estate investment. Yeah. And as you can see from the logo behind, I presently work with One Global, which is a company that provides an end-to-end solution for clients who want to access international real estate investment, particularly strong in the UK, but perhaps just don't have the time or the motivation to go and do their own due diligence and want to lean on the expertise of a company that's able to literally guide them through the whole A to Z of how to navigate the challenges of investing in an overseas property.
Yeah, and and I'm so glad that you're on the show. Singaporeans are big on investing in real estate. I mean, it's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki that I actually subscribe online. When his shows pop, I will watch, I mean, he's the father for a lot of people for the first time investment, right? And we're talking about in a pandemic whereby I talked to my French, friends. I've spent 7 years there trying to build my own real estate company, my real estate network, buying land and trying to build and getting all the licenses. It's something that I like to do, endeavor inside, besides just getting the passive income, but really getting it up as a woman who wants to, do something for myself, right? It's always like I love the kind of heat and the kind of challenge that going into a new endeavor brings. In this pandemic times, we're talking about the economy that's almost shut down, right? Data from IMF, from World Bank, Christine Lagarde, there's so much words. Christine Lagarde used to be the IMF chief, but now she's in a Euro Central Bank now. There is a lot of news that comes out to say that, the world is going to go to Great Depression, right? In 2020, it's going to go to the unprecedented Great Depression that the world has not seen. Be ready for it. I mean, we've heard about that in 2020, but somehow in 2021, we did not go into that. But of course, because of a lot of borrowings from all around the world, you're talking about France, you're talking about Singapore, but America, the debt ceiling rising again. And there's a lot of borrowings, and of course, inflation, we're going up, of course. But besides that, we do not really see the deep depression that was actually being rumored in 2020 by a lot of experts. In fact, real estate was one of the shining sectors that actually was shining because the properties have gone up. And I was talking to my friends in France, in US, in Las Vegas, my personal friend, and also in Australia, another realtor friend of mine, and of course in Singapore. The numbers just keep rising and rising. And Singapore government is trying to put a stop to it, right? It is almost like the place to park your money where the world is going through uncertainties. Am I right, Richard?
Yeah, it's been an absolutely crazy year. I remember back in January, February of last year when the pandemic was breaking out, and the analysts in the UK property market were anticipating anywhere between a 5 to 7% decrease in property prices. And boy, how wrong could they be? Yeah. It is counterintuitive, and I don't blame them. I think most people would have anticipated real estate prices to go down when you're anticipating a major recession, or even worse still, a depression to occur. But the UK has seen an average of 13.2% increase in property prices in the last year, and it continues. 13.2 on average. Oh my God,
that's like,
yeah, it's nuts.
Breaking the roof.
Some regions in the northwest.
It kind of really like broke the roof, right?
Yeah, in the northwest of England, even higher, up at 18% in the Liverpool, Manchester area. So it's kind of defied all logic. But actually, on reflection, several things have come together to drive this. One key thing is the desire to live in a bigger place, often in a location that's close to parkland, recreation. People are working far more.
No more hospitals, right? Like no more hospitals. Like don't be near to a hospital.
Yeah.
Past is always like they want to be near to the hospitals. Like I think that's a change. Like I really don't want to be near hospitals anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So people have been upgrading. So the activity of property, because people have wanted and rethought where they want to be living, and it's had a major impact. And then coupled with that, you've had in the UK a temporary stamp duty holiday on the first £500,000. So that's a major saving.
And Could you repeat that loud and clear to everyone?
there was a temporary
tax
stamp duty holiday. Yeah,
wow,
so it's the tax
that's huge.
Saving of over £15,000 on the first £500,000 of your property, and
that's huge.
The lowest interest rates in 300 years, which means getting access to financing and mortgages is cheaper now than it's ever been in living memory. So these things have come together and absolutely fueled the real estate industry. And also in the UK, we found that over the Brexit period and all the political shenanigans that went on with that many people decided to sit on the fence because they err on the side of caution. They weren't sure, what was going to happen to the property market, the UK economy. And so many people were sitting on the fence for 4 or 5 years since the Brexit referendum, but have recently added to this fuel on the fire, so to speak, jumped into the property market, and it's just been going ballistic.
And you know what, just to echo you, this is what's happening in Singapore, right? And also in France. And you know, because I'm so much into the French real estate, you know, it's something that I can talk to you about. It really delights me to talk to you, someone on that professional level. You know, the French 20-year loan is less than 1%.
Yeah.
It's ranging from 0.7 to 0.9. It's like, oh, wow, that's free money, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I've heard from clients who are French, if they're French citizens living in France, the access to finance is very cheap, albeit I've heard that, you know, the taxes can be very high.
Yes, it is.
But, you know, you're right. Many countries around the world have just seen an explosion in their real estate. Again, going back to those fundamentals that people are now rethinking, what do I need from a property? If I'm going to be working either full-time or part-time from home, I no longer need to be necessarily geographically close to where I'm working. And if that's in the city, the center of a major city like London, you could be paying 3, 4, 5 times the price for your rent or to purchase the property than something that's on the outskirts or on a commuter belt town for that matter. So again, people have really been reconsidering the priorities of where they live and what they need from their home.
Yeah, and maybe Richard, you can talk a little bit about London that I think excites a lot of people. You know, when I go to YouTube Live now and I go to Facebook Live, a lot of people are just shopping, buying off things from the street of London.
Yeah.
A lot of Singaporeans are, you know, they flew there, they got the quarantine of 2 weeks, and now they are just flying there and going to all these high-end shops. Like, I mean, it's all this Machino and the DKNYs, the international brands and all this. I think people, and London still has that image of like, this is where you want to be, right? Not only for education for Singaporeans, we're talking about London University, Oxford and Cambridge, but we're really talking about London, that the place to be, and a place whereby people can really communicate because it's English. And you know, and I know that London is actually the geographical division of the district is by concentric circle, right? District 1, 2, 3, and to 12 districts. Am I right, or I'm wrong?
Well, basically, those zones, as they're referred to, like zone 1, think of it like the bullseye of a dartboard, and then you've got concentric circles going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. They were initially created for the transportation system. So if you were just traveling, let's say, around in zones 1, 2, 3, you could get a day pass to allow you to travel unlimited within that part of London. So the zones originated from a transportation system, but people have often used it to identify places in London, how close it is to the center. And I certainly found that, you know, going back 10, 15 years when I was getting more and more into the real estate market, many people would just focus on zone 1 and 2, and they wouldn't even consider anything outside of that. But as time has passed and we've seen a ripple effect, and more recently with COVID, people looking to move to the outskirts or to the commuter belt towns because they get more bang for their buck at the end of the day.
Wow. I mean, you just spoke my mind. It's like, you know, it's like, get me out of Singapore anytime right now. You know, it's like, I just need a boat to like row if I could. Just get me out here. I mean, we're really talking about people who are pent up. That's number one, pent up demand, because people have been in lockdown. They can't spend, they can't go to the shops. That's why you see like in London, where looking at Facebook, a lot of Singaporeans are there right now, just buying things off the street. I think they're in Oxford Street. I think Oxford Street is almost like the Geylang of Singapore, right?
I wouldn't say so much the Geylang. I mean, it's the big shopping street, the sort of dare I say, the affordable sort of retail shops.
The smaller retail shops, right?
In Oxford, yeah, they're smaller retail shops, a little bit less expensive, maybe slightly less glitzy than your Knightsbridge area of London, where you've got your Harrods and so on. But yeah, it's but I think, you know, here in Singapore, we've all been suffering from what I call cabin fever.
Of course.
We've been locked up in
an island
on our little red dot, as it's referred to, you know, the tip of mainland Malaysia, and not in China, by the way.
Thanks for the clarification to the international audience.
Exactly, and often a confusion. But fortunately, we're starting to open up with travel corridors going to more and more countries, and I think so many of us who've been in Singapore and not left it for 18 months or more, are just looking forward to a little bit of time in a different place and a bit of retail therapy.
Yeah, and like what you say about London, I mean, it still gives people that dream, right? London, Paris. I mean, you can, of course, there is interchange, right? You just have to go on the underground over Dover to go to Paris, and of course you can take a flight. British Airways is only like 50 euros from Paris to London, even from Bordeaux, where I was. It's only like 50 euros. It's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
You're just talking about being connected to the rest of Europe in the place whereby it's really English speaking for the rest of the world. And I particularly remember when I was there, I do a lot of transit in Britain, but I remember when I was there with my mother, I bought a pair of shoes from Oxford, leather, and it really lasted me for years. Leather shoes, but it still gives me the kind of a dream, like, okay, that's the place to be, right? And that's the place that if you want to leave the pandemic in Singapore, probably we should consider London. And let's go to Richard. At the end of the show, Richard, you can rattle off your email where people can find you. But tell us more about London and about this phenomenon that people are really going to the rurals. And this is what I talked to with Ben Kitchens, a top podcaster in America. He's saying that in Georgia, Atlanta, everybody is like moving up from New York. They are moving out because it's so expensive there, but they are really going to like Atlanta, and people are going to the suburbs. And I particularly like the suburbs now because of the pandemic. I've always loved it because you've got more space, more bang for your buck. But really, it gives you so much more like calmness, right? You really want to really get away from the news and the disruption of the world, whereby you really can say the world can stop for a while. I can go back to my home in a little bit of the suburbs. Tell us about that, the outer part, Richard.
Sure. Well, I think one of the blessings, if you can use that word, for the pandemic is it's accelerated change. And yes, change brings opportunity. And what we've seen, particularly from a real estate and residential perspective, is that people are changing where they live. And they're no longer bound by geographical boundaries. Research has shown that prior to the pandemic, the number one reason that people chose to live in a particular property was its accessibility to transportation. And that's because people need to travel to their work. Now, the number one reason that people are looking for is access to open parkland, greenery, and space. It's more of a lifestyle decision. And so what we've seen as a result of that is that people no longer feel that they have to live in the city centre, that they can choose to live in the outer suburbs or even in a well-connected commuter belt town, where again, they have a much bigger bang for their buck. They'll have, for the same price, a property that could be twice the size, with more rooms for a home office to be able to work from, and potentially only having to go into the office one day a week. And so again, it's really accelerated the shift and thinking about where people live and where they work. And that's created opportunity. People can now work from home full time, and it's the norm. It's created opportunity, and as I say, really accelerated that change that might otherwise have taken, who knows, 5 or 10 years to see the same change that's happened in the last 12 to 18 months.
And Richard, just to reiterate, tell us a couple of projects that you have right now outside of London.
Well, I mean, One Global, we have over 40 different properties across multiple cities, whether that be London, Birmingham, Manchester. But one that I did want to highlight today is in arguably the best connected commuter belt town in and around London called Ashford. We have a development there called the Triangle, and basically it's just a 29-minute journey to central London via British Rail. It's also on the Eurostar train line, so it means you can connect into Paris in under 2 hours, Brussels in just over 1.5 hours, and even Amsterdam as well. It has its own economy. There's just recently been a regeneration of what's called Newtown Works, which is going to be housing Amazon Prime, Netflix, and HBO's UK office. So it's got its own economy there as well. The development itself, literally 10-minute walk into the train station, 4-minute walk to the leisure and local shopping mall called Elwick Place, and literally right on your doorstep, the River Stour and Victoria Park. The property looks over this beautiful lush green park. So you can live effectively in a town where your outlook looks like rural England, and yet you could be in central London within 29 minutes, and property prices average 39% cheaper than the average price of a property in London.
Okay.
So
right. So I've got to stop you there because you're getting me too excited, Richard.
That's okay.
Yeah,
you can put a reservation down.
So I'm just thinking that
I can help you out.
If this show goes viral, you got to thank me a lot. So Richard, definitely, I want to stop you there because you're giving us a lot of information. 2 questions, even before you go to the details. You're talking about a couple of things, because I think myself, I want to know who is One Global. I hope you can rattle off like some of the projects, the turnover, how huge is it? I mean, for me, when I invested in my condo in France, the first thing I did was to look at the financial statements, right? If it doesn't have $1 billion turnover per year, I can't invest in that. I mean, I'm talking about in France. Now, the other thing is that another question is, you offering here the opportunity of person, a potential investor like myself, to buy a property and live there, or you are proposing an opportunity for timeshare, which is a second category of investment, or an investment for lease and management. Which category are you talking about? I mean, you're talking about people like myself. I've not invested in UK. I do not know a lot about UK, even though I studied Shakespeare. I've been to Stratford. But tell us a little bit more about these 3 categories. What do you do? Yeah.
Sure. I would say the primary is serving clients who are looking for investment property. My definition of an investment property is something that you are investing your hard-earned cash into an asset that you wish to see grow grow your wealth over time. It's not somewhere that you necessarily look to live in. It's purely a means to an end.
Pure investment for ROI.
Yeah, okay, a very hard-nosed business decision. Okay. That's the majority.
Yep.
We do have a minority of people that are buying to live in. It may be an expat that's looking to relocate back to London, or for a wealthy client that wants to have their own personal property so that when they do travel to Europe, they've got a base in which to live from.
Okay. One question, like for 500,000 Singapore dollars, what are the things you can, what's available for Singaporean? 500,000.
Sure. Well, anything I would say on the outer skirts of London and properties in the second tier cities of places like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds.
Wow.
Definitely that would actually
be where the famous footballers
budget.
Are, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be in there?
And where I studied in Newcastle, they've just been bought over by one of these Arab groups have now become the richest club in the whole of the UK. So up the tsunami, as they say.
Yeah, it's like, so, there's still many benchmarks. Tell us, like, rattle off 500,000. What can someone get, okay, in terms of like the 2 categories, the lease and management, like what you do, and then also investment, as in they do their own lease and they do their own rental, but just an outright buy. What can anyone get outside?
For 500,000 Singapore dollars, that's, let's say, roughly 300,000 300,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You could buy, you know, a 1-2 bedroom unit on the outskirts of London, or a 2-3 bedroom unit in a place like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool.
Like, what's the size like? What's the size like?
So a 1-bedroom unit, typically around about sort of 600 square feet. 2-bedroom unit, 800 to 1,000 square feet. 3-bedroom unit, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. But at the same time, you could leverage that money. So £300,000 you could use and put 100,000 deposit on 3 properties and effectively leverage your money, which would give you potentially a far greater return on the capital employed. Does your company
do that too?
Absolutely. So we'll help with bank financing, and once the property is ready to rent out, we'll assist with everything from helping the client market the property, find the tenant, manage it on a day-to-day basis, collect your rent, and even help to resell it at some stage in the future when you wish to take back your profits.
Can you describe how a dream life look like staying in the outskirts? I think that's everyone would like to know. Now we're in pandemic lockdowns, right? Tell us how a typical life when you get up early in the morning. What do? Walk to the garden?
Yeah, I mean, I
do a barbecue there.
I used to have a beautiful property in the county of Devon, which is in the southwest of England. It had coastal views on 3 sides of the property. And it really was my dream house. It was a place that I bought. It was much more of an emotional attachment. It was places that I visited and had holidays as a child, and used as a base, so that when I went back to the UK on holidays, I would stay put there, and I'd invite all my friends and family to come and join us, so that they could have a holiday whilst we were in a beautiful holiday location. But yeah, that's one of the beauties of living in a landed property with a garden in a beautiful part of the world, that you know, the nature is on your doorstep.
And you were talking about perpetual holding, right?
Yes, yeah. So typically a landed property in the UK is freehold. If it's an apartment or a condo, it will be a leasehold. Typically, the leasehold will vary from about 125 to 999-year leases.
And do you do houses?
We do, but we tend to find, from an investment perspective, an apartment is less difficult to manage. You know, when you've got a landed property with a garden, it does take more time and energy.
Manager.
Yeah. So typically we find for those profile investors that are looking for an investment property, they're not going to be living in it. It's mostly apartments. Yeah. But if it is a bespoke search for somebody who's looking to have their dream home or to relocate back to the UK, then we can do a bespoke search and find their dream property.
Because my husband and I were thinking, we need a pond with fish.
Right.
We need to have a place where we can barbecue, an outdoor jacuzzi, and then build our sauna, you know, in a hut. You know, we're thinking about all that, you know, just get out of this life, you know. A lot of us right now in the pandemic, you've painted a beautiful picture. I think all of us are really trying to live a new life post-pandemic. And your show, Wealth Management, Living Again Post-Pandemic, I think it's like an inspiration call for us. In this pandemic, I mean, let's face it, over 4.7 million people died directly from COVID, right? They died so that we can live. Think about that. So I always wake up with a heart of gratitude, Richard. If anything woke me up in this pandemic, is that chance that we're able to wake up, breathe, have our limbs, and to able to work, and then to be able to plan ahead, whatever uncertainties there are. I mean, it's such a blessing, Richard, to be able to relive your life, things that you held yourself back before, the job that you were afraid to look for, the place you were afraid to go, the things that you were afraid to venture. You know what I'm trying to say?
Sure.
The mistakes that you made, you want to undo them, do it now. I mean, it's a time whereby a lot of us, like in 2020 is actually where the world locked down. 2021, I think people try to rediscover, and I think let's not waste this phase. Before we even like get out, I think it's a time whereby we can sit down and reevaluate, what were the fears before? What were things that hold us back in our lives? What were the areas in our lives that we didn't like, when people ask you, what would you redo if you can live again? I mean, this is the chance, isn't it? What would you do when you can relive your life? I think if 2021 marks a really important calendar in humanity and the world, it's really about people being given a second lease of life. You go out there, you live your dream, you go to places that you were afraid, things that held you back, you were afraid. Times whereby you did not dare to say sorry, you say that. Times whereby you held back to say I love you, that's the time, that's the chance, right? This is the time whereby you break away from all the glass walls, right? That you built yourself with. We're not even talking about glass ceilings. We're talking about breaking the glass ceilings, breaking the glass walls. That's why I thought that you coming onto the show makes it so important, because you give that new light, if you believe it or not, to tell people that, hey, you can relive your life. You had been in a rut before the pandemic, and the pandemic put you in a greater rut. Now is the time for you to get out of that rut. And I always feel that, for Asians, a home is the #1 investment. #1, and the beginning and the end, right? For Asians, right? The first thing, you put your money in a piggy bank, is always for your home, not your car, right? Not for new clothes, right? It's always about getting that home and making that the heirloom for your children, building up the future, building up the wealth for yourself, for your retirement, and for children. Richard, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally had a mantra that is to live life to the full. I mean, that's one of the things that I aspire to do. Change is something that's inevitable in life. And I think one of the things that does hold people back is the ability to adapt and change. But I think that often in times that we've just gone through helps people to really reflect on their lives and what is truly important. And I hope that if we can look at a positive, that reflecting and saying, well, look, life is fragile, life is precious. There are many things in my life that I haven't done that I'd like to achieve. Many things on the bucket list that I've been dreaming about but putting off. And I think that when we go through the challenges where we might have loved a lost one, or lost a loved one, sorry, or we've had a major illness ourselves, whether that be the pandemic and being hospitalized or some other close or near-death encounter, it really helps us to reevaluate.
You really kind of wake you up, right? I mean, just looking at the data, I mean, and you're right to say that, just really going out there to live your life again. And you never know, Richard, I may just be coming into your office with my husband and then buy a ticket to London. But not where the crowds are, right? Not where the crowds are, but really just going out there in the suburbs where people just really want to get away from the crowds and just calm down a little bit, and then try to have this space, right? And with that space, you really have that natural social distancing, right? Even you have a standalone apartment. I mean, Singapore is really a place whereby everything is just so packed. We're really the second most dense population in the world, in Singapore. So I think a lot of people are just really dying to get out. Excuse the pun, which is so bad in bad taste, but people are really just wanting to get out. So Richard, for the last 40 minutes, we had such a great, wonderful time with you. You're such a great person to talk to, and I'm very sure the audience will tune into you for what you've got to say more, whereby we can put in more videos, more pictures about the dream in London, outskirts of London, and going to Richard. People can come to you virtual. They don't have to come to Singapore, right?
Sure, absolutely. As I said, I've always been a big advocate. I've always been a big dreamer. Sometimes that could be to my detriment, but I would rather be on my deathbed feeling that, have I achieved everything in life? Did I give it a go?
Did I give it a go? Wow.
As opposed to, thinking, what if? Yeah. I would hate to be on my deathbed thinking, what if?
Yeah.
And I think,
exactly.
I hope that my life in certain respects has shown that I've dared to take a risk. I live in a country that's not where I was brought up. I've married somebody who's from a completely different background and culture. I've had to adapt to a lot of different environments through both work and the place that I've chosen to live, but I enjoy that. It makes life, much more fun and exciting than going through the day-to-day routine of having no change in life.
Richard, well said. I feel that connection with you, and that's why I've got my investment in France, trying to carve, to do my own development in France. I may come to you and to kind of like shift my office and my business from France to London, because France is really like, with all respect and all the love, all right, it's just a bureaucracy that's just killing me, right? Let alone the language. I love the language. I love the people. I love the culture. I love, and the people love me. But it's really the red tape. It's really the red tape that kills you, because time is money. Time is life. You don't want to lose like 1 year just to get a piece of paper, which happens in France, right? Mm-hmm. People, yeah. So I would love to hear from you again. I think the audience would really want to come back to you for the second episode of what are the dreams, what the dreams are made of in London, and what you can offer them, the people, and myself particularly. I am very intrigued about London, about UK as a whole, even though not really invested a lot of my time there, but just being there as a tourist. But now the times are different. We have to evaluate the life's opportunities out there, right? We have a life to live now. So we don't want to cut short our own opportunities, right, Richard?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'd be delighted to share more details. London is a great international dynamic city, but there's so much more to the UK as well, which I'd be more than happy to share in future episodes.
I would love to.
Watch this space, so to speak.
Yeah, I would love to come to you to buy a piece of farmland. And I'm not kidding you, because I looked at agriculture, not vineyards, in France, but I looked at agriculture, because big, huge, vast pieces of land, I would love that, and then build a house in the middle of it. So, Richard, I will come back to you. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Richard Lowe, formerly from UK, Oxford, but now as a professional expat in Singapore and running his business with One Global Property Service. We'll hear more about One Global in this next episode. And Richard, could you rattle your email for people whom they want to write to you?
Yeah, sure. It's richardlowe@ogpsglobal.com. That's Richard Lowe @ogpsglobal.com. So I'll look forward to any emails, and I'll be delighted to share my thoughts and insights and see if I can help you.
Yeah, and because this is also recorded on YouTube and podcast, you can always click and then re-listen to his email again. And if it's interesting, please share, like, and then come back to us for the next episode, whereby Richard is going to dive in to tell us more about the dreams, what dreams are made of, right? So Richard, thank you so much. And for the next 10 seconds, I just want to thank you, the audience, for being with us. And also thank Richard for the great testimonies about Singapore, about being Singaporean, about the third culture in Singapore. And we've got to share more love from Singapore to the rest of the world, Richard.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Yeah, Richard, thank you so much. And I enjoyed it so much, ladies and gentlemen. Come tune in to Richard, left or right? And then we will show you much more videos and much more pictures about how dreams are made of. So, Richard, thank you. And stay safe, you and your wife. Would you like to make a shout out to her here?
She's working hard at home. I've got 2 children as we speak doing their O-level English right now. So good luck. We love you all.
Wow. So that's Richard to the rest of us. So I will come back to you, ladies and gentlemen, and present Richard and what he can offer us, and tell us more about London, the culture, the history, the architecture, the shopping and the food. And I'm very sure these are the things that draw people to London. Bye.